Welcome to the Millionaire Journey Podcast. The goal of this podcast is to guide and empower you on your journey towards financial independence. Here's your host, Glenn Yaney.
Today, my guest is Jeremy Dyer, partner of Rise 48. Welcome, Jeremy.
Yeah, thanks, Glenn. Appreciate it. Looking forward to the discussion.
Also, you do have a podcast, what's your podcast name?
Yeah, The Freedom Point.
Awesome. And if you could, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you having me on again. Hopefully we could provide your listening audience with some value here. So I really got my start in the professional space as a sales professional. Was very blessed early on in my sales career in the technology sales space to really go from being that rookie of the year, year number one, to the number one guy in all of North America. And I remained in that top spot for 2 decades. All of that allowed me, Glenn, to be able to have enough liquidity or capital on the sidelines to be able to cut my teeth in the real estate space. So I was that quintessential guy who was 24 years of age, had one child, was happily married, had my dream home paid off, had the 40-foot RV sitting in the driveway. Things were going well. My challenge is it wasn't difficult to max out the 401k. Right. What was difficult, however, is to find other places to deploy that capital. So, of course, just like a lot of others, I tried my hand at the Wall Street gambling casino. I bet right, half of the time, and I bet wrong the other half of the time, that type of a thing. Right. And so my wife and I in 2012 watched an HGTV show on fixing and flipping houses. And we decided, wow, that sounds super sexy. Let's get involved. So 2012, here we are. Literally, stroking out 6-figure checks, investing cash in distressed single-family homes in order so that we could repurpose those, fix and flip them, right? And that process was working really well for us, Glenn. The challenge is that 2015 rolled around and we were faced with 2 dilemmas. Number one is we were having a tough time bringing our children along this journey with us, where we were exposing our kids to some very distressed situations, things like marijuana farms and meth labs and stripper poles. Okay. And so there was that challenge. The second challenge is in 2015, we also decided to double down on kids. And when I say double down on kids, we went from 2 kids to 4 kids and life was just getting crazy. And so there became a point where I told my wife, Marlene, I said, I can't keep riding 2 horses at the same time. I can't be crushing the commission and the bonus checks while also building up a growing at the time single family homeownership portfolio. So we decided in 2015, Glenn, after having been in the active side of real estate for a whopping 36 months, to go completely passive out of pure bandwidth reasons, because I just didn't have time to be able to actively manage real estate while also crushing the W-2 and trying to be a good husband and a good father all at the same time. So we went passive in 2015. Fast forward now till today, we're in 38 different investments as limited partners. 2 years ago, we started telling friends and family and those that are part of my personal and professional network about the types of real estate investments that we were already making. And lo and behold, there was a massive appetite out there for other people that were just like us, busy professionals, top sellers in the technology sales world, family, friends, neighbors, you name it. There was a huge appetite out there for others to want to diversify, outside of Wall Street and into Main Street. When it comes to investing in Main Street, you have a choice. You're either an active investor, where maybe you're an entrepreneur or you buy a franchise business, for example, or an active piece of real estate, or you do it on the passive side. So we really found that by telling our story to others in terms of the types of investments that we were making and the lessons that we learned, and our ability now to generate passive income with tax benefits and to diversify our holdings outside of Wall Street and into Main Street, that there was an enormous amount of others out there that were looking to do the same. And so we basically started a company with the sole purpose of educating passive investors on the benefits of passive real estate investing. And that's where my company, Starting Point Capital, was predominantly born. And after a couple of years of having success raising capital, now to the tune of over $50 million in less than 2 years, I also just recently became a partner at Rise 48 Equity. And Rise 48 Equity is a premier sponsor in the space. and they really dominate, an execution and an alignment of investor growth as well as interest.
Awesome. So let's unpack a little bit of what you were saying. I was thinking, you said in 2015 you started investing as a limited partner, and by you said 2022 you had invested into 38 syndications. Is and so and you did you keep your professional job while you were doing that?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, basically, what I was doing, Glenn, is I was earning the commission checks so that I had more dry powder to continue to invest in more real estate, right?
Yeah,
And a little bit of a clarification from 2015 until today,
yeah,
now we're in 38 deals as
yes,
limited partner investors, but we've also had a number of deals that have gone full cycle as well. So we've really been able to experience kind of the full, spectrum of what can happen on the positive side as well as on the negative side when it comes to investing in real estate, because we've had the opportunity to invest now at multiple different stages of the economic cycle.
yeah. And it's something really, it's great that when obviously if you're in good syndications, uh, it's like you don't feel it, like just like if you're buying dividend stocks, not to compare it to the same, but it's like you don't see it when you put the first investment in and you get the little dividend every month. It's like, but then over time, it's like you've been doing like 2 to 3 deals a year. It's like you start seeing the windfall. And for us, it's been kind of, it started happening around 2022. You get like a windfall then, but we've been constantly buying throughout it. And obviously, the more you buy, the more windfalls you get. And it's a, like this year, ideally, we should have 3 of them. And it's just extra money that you were already, you'll just reinvest it and then it grows a seed.
Yeah, I mean, I tell investors all the time, I'm sure you do the same, but there's no such thing as a risk-free
Yeah.
investment out there. And really, when it comes to deploying capital in real estate, I'm a big proponent of diversification,
Yeah.
right? Diversification of operator, of asset class, of geography, of business plan, of debt structure. There's lots of different ways that investors can, be diversified. And the same thing that your financial advisor would tell you as it relates to diversification, they're also talking about something called dollar cost average, right? Well, the
Yeah.
same rules and principles can also be applied when you invest in real estate. The truth is that it's not a get rich quick scheme. Okay. It can take 5, 10, 15 years before you start to really build up, generational wealth, and you're able to compound investments into and really stack them on top of each other. But the truth is that I remember as a passive limited partner investor investing in 2016 and 17, and all the experts were screaming a recession's coming, a recession's coming. Well, guess what happened? No recession came. And if you sat on the sidelines in 2015 through 2021, you missed out on a massive bull run, okay, in the real estate space, asset class agnostic. Well, the other side of that coin is that in 2021, everybody was running into the fire, right? When truth be told, everybody should have been running out of the fire. So while people were getting greedy in 2021, those are the folks that they bought high. It's your traditional buy low, sell high, don't buy high and sell low, right? So the exact opposite thing happened in 2021. And we don't always know what the next black swan event is going to be. We don't always know exactly where we're at relative to the current market cycle in real estate, right? But what I do know right now is 2016 was a great time to invest. 2021 was not. Okay. 2023, 24, and 25, I'm convinced that the investments that I've made as a limited partner passive investor over the course of the last 36 months, those investments that I made are going to far outperform the investments that I made in the year 2021 and early 2022. Why?
Yeah.
Because valuations, right? Things have come down. Bases have now been reset as a direct result of a number of things, right? Obviously, the debt component being one of the major ones in terms of the skyrocketing
Yep.
environment of what interest rates can have on the markets.
Yeah. And one thing I hear what you're saying about 21, but at the same time, it's like we're all like a Morgan Housel says this, financial writer, love his writing. It's a lot of stocks, 401k stuff, but he's got a lot of good stories that he tells, but we're all playing on a different field. So like even me and Jeremy playing on a different field, but I would say that we're also like, if you made a, like, say, quote unquote bad investment in 2021, it still depends on what field you're playing on. Like, these are long-term investments. It's like, it might be a bad investment short term. Like, if you're trying to sell it today, ideally you have uh, good operators that can hold long term, great financing. Even if it was 21, that the values might not be there today, but at the same time you're able to hold out for 5 to 10 years. That's really what it's like. Every single recession, it just seems like we're just reminded of that same rule. Like,
Yeah.
long term hold. Like, we're buying this long term hold. It's like in 2016, it might not have been a great investment in 2018. But when we got to 2021, we're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we bought it for that cheap.
Yeah. And I think the book that you referenced there is Killing Sacred Cows by Morgan Housel. Am I saying that
No,
correctly? Or am I
Killing Sacred Cows is Garrett Gunderson, also a great book. He's
Yes.
against 401ks, which I am along with that crowd. But he is, Morgan Housel is The Philosophy of Money.
The Philosophy of Money. Thank you. And I think he wrote a second book to
Yeah.
follow up on that recently
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah. He's been on he's a great interview. If you ever look him up on YouTube, it's a lot of them. What is it called? Behavioral finance is what it is. It's great and it's for everybody. It's like we listen to who's the guy that you see, hedge fund guy, Bridgewater, can't think of his name, but Ray Dalio. So Ray Dalio is giving advice to millions of people. It's like, but we're not playing the same game as Ray Dalio. Just like whoever's listening is probably not playing the same game as I am. So it's kind of like, you just have to see the game you're playing and stick to it, is what I would say. But I focus on cash flow because I really believe in it. It kind of keeps the investment honest and not like FOMO. You feel like you got to buy something because everybody else is buying it, and then how is the debt structure along with it.
Yeah, that's totally true. And the thing that a lot of people don't realize or they lack to understand is that when it comes to investing, a lot of investing is done based upon speculation, right? We're speculating that something's going to happen in the future, which is going to cause, the value to increase, right? And some of that may be intentional, where we're forcing value creation, right? The other side of it is what we anticipate is going to happen in the debt market, right? Or what we anticipate is going to happen as it relates to how supply and absorption interact in any specific, submarket. But the important thing for investors to really understand is that before you ever choose to invest with a sponsor or in a deal, you really need to, determine how much execution risk, there is at stake here, right? What's some of the worst case scenarios that could happen, whether it be, local cap rates expanding or contracting? What's going to happen in the debt structure, right? What's going to happen as it relates to supply and demand? Some of these things that we can predict with relative certainty, but some of them we can't.
Definitely. One that we just came across, it was a little bit of a surprise to us, is we have escrow on these mortgages, and the insurance went up real bad in 2023, I think, and all is good, fixed financing, and then they recalculate the escrow, and then they just shot up on us. And it was like, just like how did this happen? It's like the mortgage went from 17,000 to 22,000 overnight, and that's a big jump in mortgage price. So
Yeah, we're seeing that right now as well, because at Rise 48, we secure low in the money rate caps, which cost, right? I mean, it's a cost that we spend up front in order to really mitigate against interest rate increasing or fluctuating like it has been over the course of the last several years. The cost of those caps, okay, that we purchase on the front end, they literally zigzag up and down, left and right every single day, right? And so sometimes it's tough to predict, depending upon, where the 10-year treasury is in terms of where we're going to be able to lock in, our debt structure on the deal. So it's a challenging time in the real estate space, just simply because there's so much uncertainty. There's some blood in the streets, right? You have some operators who have very thin ice under their feet, right? And so when I talk to investors, I tell them, I mean, really, more than anything, you're not investing in the pitch deck. You're not investing in the business plan. You're not investing in the debt structure, really. You're investing in that operator and
Yep.
their ability amidst headwinds to be able to navigate, some uncertain times in the future of which we don't yet know what those are.
Hey guys, if you want to learn more about our deals we're investing in, go to our website and sign up for our free ebook, 10 Reasons Mobile Home Parks Outperform Other Real Estate Investments. We won't spam you. We'll just keep you updated on the podcast and the deals we're working on. Now, back to the show. Also, the one thing I always think of is like it's never really a good time to buy. It always feels like it's like we're talking about tariffs and all the things that go on. But today is April 7th, 2025. And the one thing I'm thinking is like everybody says talking about inflation. I don't have I have no crystal ball, but I would actually I could see interest rates going down in the future. And it's like if you're able to make deals work at the current interest rates, it's like you literally it will just create more money in the future when they lower interest rates. And I think it's going to be like you're scared to buy now, but it's going to be way harder to buy when interest rates go down because there's like more opportunity. It's like, okay, now prices have lowered a little bit and interest rates are down now. So now there's more people going in to see because they can make the numbers work a lot easier. And I just think that's what's going to end up happening. We have a president that's a real estate president. He's going to somehow work out a way to get interest rates to come down, and it's going to be a lot harder to buy in the future. And I with everything that's going on, it's like it's real estate does not really go parallel with the stock market. So it's like we can't compare the two. So the headlines doesn't really match what's actually happening in the real estate world.
Yeah, totally. I agree with that. And I think another big factor for investors, which sometimes we sweep this under the rug and just don't want to talk about it, and that is the heavy impact of inflation on people's purchasing power.
Yeah.
Depending upon who you ask, the last 4 years, most Americans have lost about 20%, if not more, of their purchasing power, right? And that's a detriment. So there has to be a balance and a way, for us to, have lower debt costs, right? But also have the ability to not erode our wealth, right? And so what exists out there in terms of options for your, non-sophisticated investor as it relates to mitigate against the impacts of high inflationary pressures, which are never going to go away and you can't take it back. Once you've squeezed the toothpaste out of the tube, there's no putting it back in,
Yeah.
right? So we have to balance this. Are tariffs going to help? Are higher interest rates going to help? But the important thing is for all of us to understand is we really have to shift the discussion a little bit from how do I grow my wealth versus how do I preserve my wealth?
So how do you preserve your wealth?
Well, what types of investments are we talking about, right? Are we talking about, gambling away and making those decisions, in Wall Street? Is that the solution, right, to preserving our wealth? Or is or is the discussion more centered around investing in hard assets, right? Whether that be gold, for example, or other precious, metals and commodities, or is it real estate? Uh, that for me personally, it's been entirely real estate. I
Yeah.
can tell you that when I was a 401k investor, okay, and I was a 401k investor for almost 25 years, I maxed out my 401k. Well, I did it. I ran an exercise once. The exercise was, had I not invested any money into a 401k and instead directed those invested dollars into cash flowing hard assets, namely real estate, with the tax advantages associated with it, would I have done better deploying that capital in real estate investments, or was the better choice to have invested and maxed out my 401k for the last 25 years? Okay. The answer to that question is I would have done 3 times better, 3x better over that 25-year period, having deployed that money into real estate. And that, by the way, includes the fact that my employer was matching, in some cases, dollar for dollar, my invested capital. And yes, I understand that it was a pre-tax investment. but it is only going in, not coming out, right? Whereas with real estate investing, it's tax advantaged from a depreciation perspective. So I'm really benefiting immediately every year that those investments produce regular, consistent cash flow. They're tax advantaged every single year, if that makes sense.
And also to add to that, one thing that is not seen with what you're saying is that uh, the fact that you're talking about buying cash flowing assets compared to buying 401k, put your money in money jail. The one thing you're not that it's like if you would have become financially independent, you might have been already financially independent to an extent, but at the same time, uh, more some there's for me, I had the same position. I was in a sales job, putting my money into a 401k, and I literally thought this is going to slow me down for it'll take me 5 to 10 more years longer if I continue to put my money in my 401k. And that's also like, I pretty much ripped the cord and stopped putting in. I stopped match all of it. I just like, it doesn't even matter because once you're financially independent, you can figure out all the details afterwards. And this, whatever, not financial advice, but I would say for me, uh, I quickly learned that, I left my job I was making about 150,000 a year to make about $1,500 a month is what I was doing. Because I was able to put 100% focus on my business, I was able to grow the income a lot faster. And I think that could have been the same thing for you as well.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you highlighting that. And, I talk to so many, I call them corporate refugees,
Yeah.
right? I talk to a lot of folks in the corporate space and they want to replace the dependence of the W-2, right? And what I've seen, because again, for 25 years, I've predominantly sold technology solutions to small business franchise owners. Okay. So these are folks that are maybe crushing their W 2 that decide one day, I want to scratch the entrepreneurial itch, right? Or I know that in order for me to build generational wealth, it's either through business ownership, direct business ownership, right? Or it's through some sort of passive income instrument, right? And so a lot of these folks, they want to replace the dependence on the W 2, but in order to do that, they first need to start a side hustle, right? So they start a small business, right? Where they're working two jobs for a couple of years. They're building up their side hustle, so their side hustle eventually becomes their main hustle. Well, the challenge is for the rest of us that want to do the same thing, we may not be able to because maybe we lack the bandwidth in our lives. Maybe we lack the risk, right? And not wanting to take those types of risks. Or maybe we just don't have the entrepreneurial fortitude and we don't possess those transferable skills that it takes necessarily to run with it. So for the rest of us that are on the outside, really, what types of ways can I build up passive income so that at some point in the future, whether that's 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the road, right, I can start to replace that dependence. I may not be able to completely replace the income, the active income, but at least now I have options in the future, right? Where I don't have to be so stuck, right, on producing a commission or producing a bonus or, hoping, that my salary increases year over year over year because I now have investments that are supplementing, some or all of that income, if that makes sense.
So even in your current position, the way you've built it out, it sounds like to me that you've made it to where it is pretty passive. I mean, you also are in educating people, but what keeps you going? Like, what is the thing that drives you to continue to grow?
Yeah, it's a great question. My one thing, my focus is entirely about my family. Okay. So I get up every day and I grind it for my family. Okay. Not so that they can survive, but so that they can thrive. Right. I also regularly bring my children along with me on the journey. Okay. So I've started a couple of businesses as side hustles over the years, and I've intentionally brought my children along that journey with me so that I can set them up for success in the future. So I don't normally tell this to a lot of people, but I have an 18-year-old son that has a multiple six-figure business
Mhm.
as an 18-year-old, okay, while also going to college full time, right? So it is entirely possible, okay, for anybody listening to this podcast, whether you're 18, 28, or 58, right? We all have the knowledge that it takes. in order to be successful, because all of the information is all out there for free, right? If we're willing to go find it, number one. But number two, most importantly, is taking action upon it. Okay. The action takers dominate whatever market they're in. Okay. Whether you're an engineer, an airline pilot, a surgeon, okay, a passive real estate investor, an active franchise entrepreneur, whatever it is, okay, those that are willing to have focus, clarity, and take daily action steps every single day to achieve their goal, to which they've reverse engineered so they can determine what steps are necessary day in and day out to achieve their goals. It's those people that will end up dominating, irregardless, okay, of the skill set in which they possess.
How did you this might how did your son get started without, and then also how do you, my big thing is I have a 3 and a 5-year-old, so got a ways away, but I always think you wanna help them as much as possible without giving it to them, and, that's been my thing is like, how do I create some difficulty in their life? It's like I don't wanna make it miserable, but at the same time, it's like the people that are most successful have had struggle through their life to get to where they're at, and if you don't give them struggle, then it's like they won't wanna accomplish anything.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And, I probably learned this through my own parents. Growing up, I was a latchkey kid by the time I was 12. I got myself up in the morning and I came home from school every single day with an empty house.
Hmm.
In the summer times, I was left up to my own devices. So I had plenty of opportunities to fail, right? To figure things out, right? And so a lot of that is a direct byproduct of my upbringing. Well, today, you'd call that child abuse, right?
Yeah.
So it's a whole different discussion in today's world. But what we've been trying to instill in our children is a good work ethic. Okay. They learn that work ethic not based upon what I say, but based upon what I do, right? We also really try not to be what are called helicopter parents, right? We genuinely want our children to fail because it's through failure that we learn. That's how it works for adults, and that's how it obviously works for children. And if you don't believe me, we've all had that discussion with our children. Don't touch the hot stove. Well, a lot of kids touch the hot stove, right? And they have to learn by failing, right? And so it's really important for us not to prop up our children, but to give them those opportunities to really be challenged, okay, and to fail forward. We're still there to help support, mentor, coach, right? But we need for them to learn. So as a direct result of that, for example, I have 2 teenagers now. They both have their license. Both of them have cars, which I did not pay for. Okay. Could I have paid for them? Yes, I could have bought them 10 cars, right? But
Mhm.
I chose not to. I chose to instill in them the importance of having a good work ethic. If you want something, go earn it, right? Versus me just handing it to you, because I don't want to create an environment of entitlement with my children.
Yeah, it's a daily struggle. So, uh, tell us about, really what you're up to today with Rise 48.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. So my role within Rise 48 is really to support our fund manager community. So we have a lot of folks that have our capital raisers, right, or capital allocators that have their own group of followers or their own group of investors, and they're looking for best in class sponsors to bring investment opportunities to their investors. So my role within Rise 48 is really to support our fund managers, our capital raisers, in helping coach, mentor, educate, train them, and then ultimately bringing them investment opportunities that they can in turn share with their own individual investor networks.
Awesome. So with Rise 48, are they focused mainly on apartments?
Yeah, the buy box is very small. So we're looking to acquire B plus class assets and B plus class neighborhoods. It's your traditional workforce housing, demographic. We like markets like Phoenix and Dallas Fort Worth and North Carolina. We like properties that were built in the 1980s, 1990s, where the majority or all of the interiors are classic in nature, where we can acquire the property, hopefully at some level or layer of distress, whether that's from a distressed seller, either operationally or financially in some cases. And so we're looking to acquire properties at a good basis. We're looking to force NOI growth through a value add renovation plan. So if you think about that 1988 built property, for example, where all the interiors are classic in nature, your old Formica countertops, black and white appliances, old cabinet boxes, old flooring, etc. We're looking to bring in our vertically integrated property management, building construction, building maintenance team, and we're looking to renovate those units and then increase the rents to a price point in which that local submarket or that tenant base can still afford. If they can't afford it, then we're not buying the property, right?
Yeah.
So we're looking to force NOI growth through value add, and obviously looking to sell, that property in typically 2 to 5 years post acquisition.
So what is the like unit count usually that they're buying?
Yeah, we typically focus on properties that have anywhere from 150 to 500 units. Is typically our kind of buy box.
Yeah. Because what I was thinking is just that it's such a competitive market. Like, it's hard. Like, I look at the stuff like 50 below and even the apartments, it's a very competitive market. And I've always wondered how you can grow with that type of, because you're starting to compete with the bigger money, cheaper cap rates that they're looking for, which is also a good thing. You can sell it to those people later as well.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Honestly, it's tough. It's like finding a needle in a haystack,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
About 3% of the properties that we see either on market or off market, most properties we source through our relationships with local brokers. Most people may or may not know that depending upon the market, there's usually only 3 to 5 brokers that control 90% of the supply,
yeah,
right? So it's through those broker relationships that we find, opportunities, but only about 3% of them hit our buy box, right? And then those that hit our buy box are the ones that we typically will fully underwrite. And so we're literally underwriting hundreds of properties every single year, really to only transact on about 8 to 10 of them. And because the landscape in the commercial real estate space is changing so much, number one, we got to have our head on a swivel. But
hmm
right now, the types of properties that we're buying, there's not a lot of competition. Okay. So we're in an environment right now where we can buy properties, okay, at a lower basis with a significant amount of distress, in some cases from sellers that have had a total loss of common equity, a total wipeout of common equity in from their investors, and there's no competition from anybody, okay?
yeah,
Why there's no competition from anybody is because transaction volume fell off a cliff. There's a lot of operators in the space right now that have a massive reputation crisis on their hands, and the reason why they're not transacting on more properties is because they can't raise the capital from their investors. Why they can't raise the capital from their investors is because they've either suspended distributions, they've had capital calls, there's been a total loss of capital, whatever the story happens to be, that's where the blood is in the streets,
yeah,
right?
yep,
And Rise 48 has very strong ice and thick ice under their street, and we're going to continue to transact and aggressively attack the market at this point.
awesome. Where can people find you?
Yeah, great question. I'm fairly active out on LinkedIn, so you can find me there under Jeremy Dyer, Dyer. You're also welcome to head over to rise48equity.com to learn more about us there. And then, of course, for folks that would like to maybe email me directly, you can hit me up at jeremy@rise48equity.com.
Awesome. Thank you for coming on.
Glenn, thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Millionaire Journey podcast. Please rate, like, subscribe, leave a comment, and share with somebody you think would enjoy listening.